Hello, welcome to a very special holiday edition of GreenTV.com. I'm your host, Betsy Rosenberg. Here's where we meet the solutionaries. And I have a very special guest that I'm going to be interviewing along with my colleague, A.R. Hogan, in some 4,500 interviews over the last 25 years, more than 1,200 radio shows, and about 300 now on Green TV. I have never had the pleasure, the honor, to interview Santa Claus. And on this Christmas day, we thought it'd be appropriate for our two Jewish members of Green TV to be talking to Santa Claus, who is not in the North Pole on this Christmas, but probably about as far away from that as you can get. He's in Dubai from COP28. He's still there. We're going to find out why. We're going to find out what SustainaClaus is all about. So very excited to be doing this fun, but of course, a serious message edition of Green TV. AR?
Thank you, Betsy Rosenberg. Just a little bit of background on Philip McMaster in his persona as a SustainaClaus, and he is originally from Canada. He has a maverick, eclectic background. He has done everything from publishing to acting. He was a business professor, and he has been on 5 of the 7 continents on Earth, all but Australia and Antarctica, in the course of his career and his activism. He originally went to the UN COP 21 in Paris, France. He actually had been to the one in Montreal, Canada, COP 12 in 2005, but then he's been to every COP since the one in Paris that came up with the climate agreement that has so far been not abided by almost all countries. And that was in 2015. And then he went to COP22 in Marrakesh, Morocco, COP23 in Bonn, Germany, COP24 in Katowice, Poland, where he met Swedish climate activist and ethical vegan, peace advocate, indigenous ally Greta Thunberg and her father, Svante Thunberg, at that conference, which was held in a convention center shaped like a coal mine in the heart of the Polish coal country. And then he went to COP25 in Madrid, Spain, COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, and most recently in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. He was at COP28. You can see some of his souvenirs from his activism career there. There's a mini version of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations banner that went to the top of Mount Everest in 2018. And he didn't take it there, but he had colleagues who took it along with them when they went to the summit of Mount Everest. So we want to get right to the questions. I'll mention one other thing. He has been to 50 cities in the People's Republic of China, including to 20 of the 22 provinces, all but Tibet and Liaoning. And he is hoping to go to the next COP in Baku, Azerbaijan in 2024, and maybe even to the one in Brazil in 2030. I wanted to start maybe by asking him to explain some of the guiding principles that you follow in your activism. You have, of course, the conscience land, and the 3 principles are, I do no harm, sort of like the Hippocratic Oath. I do not fear. I leave it better than I found it. And of course, there's the three finger salute, which stands for society, environment, and economy. And you have also the Ring of Truth and a new effort called Wealth Against War. So we want to hear about these things, and maybe you can kind of briefly describe them for us, please.
Well, ho, 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 welcome. It's the holiday season. Let's not use the name of the season because it tends to get people into some kind of a religious conflict or religious talk. But let's just call it the holiday season and welcome everyone. It's the time for family and friends. And of course, as Alfred has said, it's SustainaClaus, not Santa Claus. So it's all about sustainability, society, environment, economy, and balance. And as has been said, we're trying to get people to be citizens of the world, and we call the world conscience land for our conscience. Conscience Land, there's three questions that we ask people, and I'll ask you, the audience, on this holiday time. Do you have a conscience? I'm guessing yes, of course you do. Do you have a conscience? So check that box off. Do you act on your conscience? Alfred, Betsy?
We certainly try to.
Most always, not 100%, but I try.
Exactly. And that is the point of asking the question, because that's an honest answer. We need to be acting on our conscience, but in this world that's created, can we actually do that? And the answer is no. So we want to act on our conscience, but we've got to develop a world that allows us to do so. And the third question is, do you serve your community? And of course, again, what's your answer? Do you serve your community?
We try
Clearly,
to.
you're doing that with Green TV, right? You're serving the community. So bingo bongo, the Sustainees, Roger the reality rooster, buck, 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 wake up to reality, and LCP, the local, you can see that she's dressed up in her holiday boots and so on. So LCP, the AI panda, she welcomes you, and Roger welcomes you as citizens of Conscience Land. And as Alfred also just said, when you're a citizen of Conscience Land, there are 3 affirmations that we ask people to follow. So I'll say the first one. Do you, affirmation is I do no harm. Is that something that you can get your affirmation around? Okay, so I do no harm, that's the first one. The second one is I do not fear. Because certainly in this world that we're talking to, a lot of people are living in fear, losing jobs, their economic problems, of course, climate change and weather change. All of these things, they are creating fear in people, but not offering solutions, not offering ways that people can act. So what's the third affirmation? I leave it better than I found it. So that's what I hope to do in this wonderful interview with Green TV, Betsy and Alfred. I hope to leave the whole world better than I found it.
Well, you'll be happy to know, SustainaClaus, that I started on Earth Day 1997 with the little 1-minute feature on CBS Local in San Francisco, where I worked for many years. Had to develop trash talk because I couldn't get environmental news on, and it was sound solutions for a healthier planet and people. And I have always focused on solutions because what's the point, right? And luckily, people in the media, podcasts are starting to go, hey, we should focus on solutions, because for a while it was no news and then it was bad news. And you got to do both, right? We got to let people know what the problems are and the solutions. And if I could do that in 60 seconds with my name and title at the beginning end of those little trash talk features, and then I went from garbage to global warming, then we all can.
Absolutely, and you'll notice on AI Panda's front here, you'll see Extinction Rebellion. And I have been part of Extinction Rebellion for, well, very much since the beginning, actually. And that's great. They're doing fantastic work. But in my view, we have to work toward the extinction solution. Right, because the world is becoming aware, and certainly the ones that aren't aware, we don't have time to wake them up. We need to work on, as you're pointing out, the solutions right now.
I like that. And we do need to get more to wake up and smell the carbon, including the Program Directors of America. But that's why they say if you don't see the book on the shelf, write it. If you don't see the film, make it. If you don't see media, my former industry, covering the most important stories of our time, then luckily with Zoom technology, now Streamyard, and with the technology that allows us to do TV on our own, it's possible with the internet. So glad you are with us to tell us what I'd like to hear what it's been like this COP for you in Dubai, in this strange, magical theme park kind of place.
Exactly correct. It's like a theme park. And in fact, it was held, this COP28 was held in what was the Expo 2020. With, beautiful grounds, all kind of futuristic and expansive, just huge areas. So, they did their best. I'm not criticizing the hosts for what they did. They did a beautiful job and they did their best. But it was a bit like a Fantasyland park, and it was not as intimate. I've been to 8, actually 9, but 8, let's say 8 COPs. since Paris, as Alfred's pointing out. 8 COPs, and all over the world in essence. But the COPs, especially Paris, which I could talk about for days, because it was so crucial. It was really a sea change. But what's happened since that time? But what I want to point out is that the intimacy. It's a negotiation. It's not a show. It's not a trade show. It's not a, let's show you my carbon capture machine. No. It's supposed to be the world coming together to find the solution, seriously, to almost intractable problems that really no community can hardly handle. So the intimacy, the ability to walk down the hallway, literally, and bump into the person who you either agreed with, or more importantly, the one you didn't agree with, and come to an understanding, and ultimately come to a decision that you're going to work together to solve the problem instead of what's happened.
I love that. And I'm sure the crowd is growing in size. Of course, there were more people from the fossil fuel industry than there were in the past. That keeps growing too. We talked about that a lot, though, so we don't need to focus on that. Give us a little bit more of your unique perspective.
Well, the part of it was, again, the size. I've been to so many of these COPs, and you make friends, and there's people who know you, and it's just pleasant to be in this environment of trying to work at a global scale on very, very local problems. The challenge again for this one was it was so large and so many people. I didn't see, in fact, I got even some negative responses from friends who said, hey, you didn't meet with me, like I'm angry with you. Well, I'm sorry, like I didn't meet with so many people who I expected to at least bump into and follow up on last year's, how did we manage and how are we going to make this year actually happen? So that was another challenge. Again, beautifully done. But we have to return to smaller, more intimate, more responsibility of each individual. They're not just passing in the night, they're face to face, and they are, really taking individual social responsibility.
But when you have representatives coming from 200 countries or so, how do you keep it small? And in a way, isn't the bad news you're talking about that it lacked intimacy and it was so large, the good news that there's more people interested than ever?
Okay, there's 2 things happening. There's a green zone and there's the blue zone, right? The blue zone is the negotiation zone. And this year was, I'm not going to moan and groan about my own situation, but almost every year I've been to the COP, I get 2 weeks. I'm an observer. I don't know if you can see this badge, but I'm an observer. I can't probably see it, but it says observer there. What does an observer do? They observe. How can you observe if you have 2 days instead of 2 weeks? And all those 2 days, of course, I put forward Change Wednesday, and as I do every COP, and that takes a lot of effort and organization and so on, and actually talking to the media. You're not observing what's going on. So this is a part of you say, there's a lot of people there. And I think there were 90 or 100,000 people in the blue zone and something like 500,000 in the green zone. Now, sure, but it's not a popularity contest. It's not like, oh, how many likes do you have? Or how many, viewers do you have? It's not social media. This is serious negotiation. People have to be responsible for what they're doing and what they're talking about and what they're advocating for.
So is it even possible to have important agreements come out of this? Some people say it was circus-like. What's your vision? What should it be? And then tell us a little bit more about your Cause Wednesdays. Is that what you call it?
Yes. Well, Change Wednesday, but I like Cause Wednesday. That's pretty good. We can adapt. It's a very flexible. Conscience land is basically whatever you make of it, right? It's your conscience. It's your world. It's your relationships. You use conscience land to do you. But the thing is, we have to do no harm to others. We can do what we want to do in the world as long as it's not harming the world and other people. and animals and nature in general. So what is my vision for COP? Well, I think that I share a vision that many people have been saying in the last couple of years, especially since Sharm el-Sheikh, and especially leading up to the COP28, and that is we need another venue. I don't mean venue in terms of a place. I mean another assembly. We need and that's why behind me, well, on this side, you can see it says SDGX. So these are the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, but these are the independent, like TEDx, the independent presentation and solutions to the SDGs. These are the people's SDGs.
So more localized, you mean?
More localized, and also responsible for, who's responsible for it? The government? We've waited 8 years and they've done nothing. In fact, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, I guess it's 4 weeks ago, he said, we're woefully behind. The poor guy, he's the head of the UN, which is it's a secretariat. It has no power. It's only trying to herd cats. It's trying to herd all these countries into having a moral backbone, right? But it can't force it. So look, the head of the UN is saying the SDGs are not being accomplished. Whereas you look at SustainaClaus and the Sustainees, these guys brought the SDG banner up Everest, the big one, and then the smaller one, as Alfred said, the smaller one went up with the team to the summit. But we did that. This is not the UN that did that. The people are concerned about how are we going to solve these goals that we're told we must solve them by 2030, or by the singularity, or by whatever you want to call the 2030 agenda 2030. You can be afraid of it, you can be agnostic toward it, it doesn't really matter. It is a deadline, and we're failing it. And I'm not saying the people are failing it, but the governments are certainly failing it. And now it's up to us for our children's future. What do we do? And we have solutions.
The Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by the UN General Assembly in New York back in September 2015. And by any metric that you measure them, that was a pretty non-ambitious pace that was mapped out there, but it's massively failing on all of the goals. There's nowhere even modest progress is
not even 15%.
Yeah,
not even 15%. That's what Guterres said.
Right.
So I'm not blaming anybody. There's no point blaming. There's no blame to be shown. It's action. We have the SDGX. I keep pointing the wrong direction. Anyway, we have the SDGX, right? Sustainable Development Goals, the independent Sustainable Development Goals. Let's get on the conscience LARP, the live action role-playing game, which is how we are. It's not just a vision, it's an action. It's starting all over the world. How we are taking responsibility for our 3 meter by 3 meter plots, and we are acting on it. We're planting trees, we're cleaning beaches, we're repairing coral reefs, we're teaching children in orphanages, whatever it is that's solving these, first of all, the first 7 goals for sure, and then 15 and 14 as well. But concentrate on the important, critical ones first. And let's get on it. Let's have fun. It is the holiday season after all. So let's give that gift to our kids. Let's give that gift of our energy, our money, our time, our focus. Let's put it on solving the SDGX.
And how do kids respond to you? And were there many children at COP and COPs in general?
Well, not in the blue zone. No, there's practically no children because it's the negotiators and the observers. And SustainaClaus. But in the green zone, for sure, it was packed with kids. And well, I think you have some photos of my interaction. They're attracted to SustainaClaus because why? Because they think it's Santa Claus, and they think they're going to get gifts. Well, we do have gifts. I am sentient AI. This is a gift. You scan it and you can join Sophia the robot and be benevolent and fix the planet. There's all kinds of things that we are giving as digital gifts that don't require any shipping or anything. And then you see in the photograph there, the ring of truth. The idea that, make this bright and fun and attractive. And the ring of truth is this SDG colored ring through which young people particularly speak truth to power. And the second function is they catch the lies. If you lie through the ring of truth, your nose grows like Pinocchio. And the third function,
get some
yes,
politicians in there.
Well, you see, we're going to throw that ring into some of the politicians, layers, and see what happens. See if the noses grow. And the third function is, of course, attraction. It's like a target. It attracts the support, possibly even money. But we're really saying if you're doing good in the world and you have your SDG plot or your Gaia plot, and this 3 meter by 3 meter or multiples thereof, if you're doing that and you're getting, results, the world and your community for sure will want to support you in that. Mm-hmm. So that's how we're going to shift it from this globalist kind of top-down, authoritarian thing to a truly decentralized, community-based, community resilience, doing the right thing, loving your neighbors, creating, an environment for your children in which they can thrive. 1.5 to thrive.
Is it correct that you once taught in a previous life university students business?
Yeah, that's right. I was teaching, I say to people, I was teaching psychopathic behavior. I was teaching psychopaths, an MBA program. I was teaching psychopaths how to, do business. But that was, 20 years ago almost. And I quit doing that because I really couldn't keep teaching. I was teaching social enterprise. But, the young people, and also actually middle-aged people, they just wanted an MBA stamp on their head. That's what they wanted. They wanted to make money and work for McKinsey and have, they just wanted an MBA to make money. They didn't care about what that I was teaching leadership. I was teaching, how do you manage a company so that it is a benefit to the society? They don't care.
Do you think they do now? Do you think there's more green MBA students, perhaps?
Well, I would like to think so, but I actually don't, because you've got the the Black Rocks and the Vanguards and the State Streets, and they're basically pulling in this ESG stuff in more large part to simply control their blockchain, their supply chain. It's really just a control system. And it's a punishment system. They're not doing it because you're doing good. They're restricting you because you're not conforming to their rules. So that's why we say the SDGX, wrong side again. Anyway, the SDGX is, it's still more. It's what we need to do as civil society. The ESG, the environmental social governance, that's companies. And I used to teach this, right? So that's companies governing themselves. This was the problem with the Paris Agreement. It was all voluntary. Who's going to actually do it when it costs them money and takes away their profitability? Nobody.
There's another 3-letter acronym that's problematic, GDP, gross domestic product. Yes, product. And what does that represent? And many people don't realize it includes so many of society's ills.
You're completely correct. Yeah, you're totally correct. I used to work for years with the Chinese Academy of Sciences. I lived in China for quite a while. And I worked for the CAS, the Chinese Academy of Sciences Research Center for Eco-Environmental Science. And most of my work was with the 3 fingers, the society, environment, economy, Jingxi, Shouhui, Huanjing, the balance of society, the environment, economy. That was most of my work, is to shift the population toward thinking about the balance as opposed to the profit. So that was but their efforts, my colleagues' efforts, were largely about this green GDP idea, but I didn't agree with it, because there's no such thing as green GDP. It's just like marketing. It's just what the big companies are doing right now with the greenwashing of sustainability. There's no such thing as green GDP. It's the wrong metric. You've heard of our friend Kate Roth. Is it Kate Raworth? The donut economy.
Yeah.
This is much more accurate in terms of how we should be treating our economies.
Circular economy.
I could go on, but I'll kind of make it happy and holiday-like.
I'm sure AR has a question. It's his turn, but I'm just wondering, the rest of the year, this is your season, obviously. Are you dressed as SustainaClaus, or do you have another persona? Where will you be in January?
Well, in January, I may be in Switzerland. I'm not sure. This is actually all year round. Every Wednesday is Change Wednesday in Conscience Land. So that's the day you smile and make other people happy. You change something about yourself, stop a bad habit and start a good habit. And the third one is unplug. So it used to be just unplug from your phone, but now it's like, wow, we've got to begin to unplug from the matrix, from our society, from the way we're being manipulated and controlled and surveilled. We really have to sort of get back to our families, our friends, our speaking to them face to face, trying to understand and be tolerant of others. This is really critical to our human our civilization if it's to continue.
And we just have time for one more question. AR, you've got it.
Okay. Well, I understand that you had some difficulties, not as severe as Aruba Farouk's, in getting to the conference, and you got to finally meet her in person. And she has been working with you as an ambassador for Conscience Land for more than 3 years now. But I understand that the plant-based treaty people helped you get your 2 days of badging. and then I had one other question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah. Okay, well, it wasn't actually the plant-based people. They helped me with the Change Wednesday, but it was another organization. This organization, the Center for United Nations Constitutional Research. They are the ones that helped me get the 2 days at least, and I thank them very much for that. They did their best. What happened was, it sounds boasting, but I am very, very good at getting coverage at every COP I've been to, BBC, AP, and all these guys. They all do a thing on SustainaClaus. Why? Because it's a season, right? And plus, I usually have something relatively interesting to say. But many of these NGOs, they put enormous amounts of effort, but they don't get the results. They do not get the coverage. And the people that help me also were complaining about that and asking me to help them. Unfortunately, it was the last moment, so I wasn't really able to do so. But I think that that's one of the missions for me and for our Conscience Land, is to, from this point forward, to help NGOs, first of all, join us in Conscience Land. And we want to make that civil society, the publicity, the getting the message out from the civil society. You don't have to follow me, but let's improve, like through Green TV and so on. Let's get that message out. Maybe it's through SDGX Live. I have it right here. The Sustainable Development Goals, like TEDx, but it's live between living people. And don't ignore the mainstream media. We try to get on them, but don't count on it. It's like the GDP. Don't count on it. We have to build our own. And I think that Green TV is like the answer.
It is. Oh my gosh, we have to end there. It's just too good. Unless there's something quick and burning, AR, because I love that.
I was just going to ask you about your impressive array of interviews: Azerbaijan TV, Portuguese radio, Romanian TV, the Brazil media, French media, and of course the Associated Press. But when you did the interview with the BBC in Dubai, and your quote, "buy nothing," unquote, for a Christmas message, you told me that it went over like a lead balloon. It wasn't what they were hoping to get.
Exactly.
Sometimes reporters shop for quotes of what they expect, and it doesn't quite fit in the box there.
That's right.
maybe comment on that and just on the
Yeah.
importance
Well,
of getting
let
media attention.
let's suggest that, we're all SustainaClaus from this point forward. You don't have to believe in SustainaClaus, but be SustainaClaus. So be generous, but also be forthright and be publicizing what you're doing. So of course you got to do something in order to publicize it. So get out there, help your family, help your friends, help your community. Okay, draw attention to yourself. Take a selfie, send it out on your social media, decide on your 3 meter by 3 meter plot, and become the media, become the citizen scientist. We all have the opportunity. In fact, we must do this. We can't leave it up to the politicians and the countries. They don't perform. So it's not a case of not liking your country or something like that. You just can't rely on it, but you must begin to rely on yourself. So be SustainaClaus, be giving, help your community, be generous, and make the world a better place.
What a positive
Peace plus one. Join the fun.
Thank you so much for joining us and having a fun end of year edition of Green TV. I want to thank our team. We have a team of volunteers. It's not just AR and I. Robert Toplansky is our wonderful production editor, Wiz. Jay, who is behind the controls here. Jay McDonough has made us look very professional. Thank you for that. And the way you've made us, with I love all the graphics that you've got. And I just want to let people know that Green TV is here to fill that green gap in news. So we're not going to be doing anything well or successfully unless you tell everybody you know, family, friends, even your enemies, because this is for all of us, or as I say, only those who eat, breathe, or drink. I don't know what the rest of you are going to do. So please, in 2024, we have big plans to grow, to start live streaming. Gosh, we have enough material, problems, solutionaries to go 24/7. And big secret, that is our ultimate goal. But we can't do it without you. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get alerted when we have interviews like this up, and there's no spam. It doesn't cost anything. But please spread the word. It's word of mouth. We cannot rely, as we just heard from SustainaClaus, on our leaders, especially with all the political dysfunction in our country right now. It should be painfully clear. It's up to us in the US and around the world. So thank you so much, everybody who's watching this. Please, please, please help us spread the word. We need to grow organically. Have a great holiday season. And until next year, end of year. Thanks.